A big thank you to JetTip for sponsoring this video. The de Havilland Canada Dash 8 is a widely popular regional turboprop aircraft that has sold in the hundreds and thousands. But before this regional success story came another aircraft. That aircraft is the de Havilland Canada Dash 7. While the Dash 7 may look similar in that it is also a high-winged T-tail turboprop, it was designed with a much different mission in mind. By the late 1960s, de Havilland Canada had become known as a world leader in producing short takeoff and landing, or STOL, aircraft, from the DHC-2 Beaver all the way to the DHC-6 Twin Otter. At the time, according to some United States government studies, it seemed that the future of short-haul traffic between densely populated cities would be served by STOLports, or specialized airports designed with short-field aircraft in mind. These would be built close to city centers, with multiple daily flights performing feeder services to larger existing airports. And so, the Dash 7 was born as a STOL turboprop airliner capable of carrying up to 50 passengers. Powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney PT650 turboprop engines, the Dash 7 was offered in both a passenger-only configuration and a combi version with a large cargo door at the front. The Dash 7 has a maximum takeoff weight of 44,000 pounds and can operate from runways as short as 2,000 feet long. The aircraft's large flaps extend as far as 45 degrees for STOL landings, and thanks to the high engine and wing arrangement, it can operate on virtually any type of runway: dirt, gravel, and even ice. With an approach speed as low as 76 knots, depending on the payload, in many ways the Dash 7 is essentially a larger, 4-engine version of the Twin Otter. Now, obviously the STOLport concept never materialized. The aircraft, though, quickly found a niche, operating from existing airports with challenging approaches, like London City. It also saw use as an effective 50-seat regional airliner, although its STOL capabilities weren't necessarily needed. However, the pure and simple fact still remained that 2 engines are less expensive to operate than 4. With the introduction of the Dash 8 in the early 1980s being more focused on economics rather than performance, the Dash 7 was no longer needed in typical airline service. Production ended in 1988 with 113 aircraft built. These days, there are only 15 or so Dash 7s flying around the world. The majority of these are flown by the United States Army, along with 2 belonging to Air Kenya. There are also a couple more aircraft flying with other operators, including the British Antarctic Survey. Canada, however, has 3 distinct operators of the Dash 7, the most of any country in the world. These include Transport Canada, Trans-Capital Air, and Air Tindi. Transport Canada currently operates 1 aircraft. This bright red Dash 7 flies as part of the National Aerial Surveillance Program. Along with 2 other Dash 8s, this aircraft monitors shipping activities, ice conditions, marine security, as well as pollution along Canada's waterways. The Dash 7's slow flight capabilities make it a very useful aircraft for this type of work, as well as its high payload. With that ability, the Government of Canada has outfitted the aircraft with advanced equipment like side-looking airborne radar, a forward-looking infrared camera, a satellite communication system, and so on. The aircraft is based in Ottawa during the winter months, patrolling the Great Lakes, and moves to Iqaluit during the Arctic shipping season in the summer. Moving on to Trans-Capital Air, which is a charter airline based in Toronto, Ontario. They have 10 Dash 7s on the Canadian Civil Aircraft Register, although most of these are currently parked at Toronto City Centre Airport. Trans-Capital Air's aircraft have mostly been flying for the United Nations on peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. While not necessarily flying within Canada, the Dash 7's ability to operate from nearly any surface makes it the ideal choice for this type of operation. At least one of these aircraft was still flying as of August 2019, but it's not clear what the future holds for these airframes. And finally, Air Tindi, a northern Canadian airline based out of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Air Tindi bought their first Dash 7 in 1996, a few years after the discovery of diamonds just a couple hundred kilometers from Yellowknife. These aircraft would soon become indispensable during the construction of these diamond mines and still provide a lifeline to this day. One of the advantages of the Dash 7 is the payload it can carry, and the large cargo door on the combi versions is hugely beneficial. On Air Tindi's aircraft, the combi configuration allows the airline to adjust capacity as needed. They can fly anywhere from a full load of 46 passengers or up to 10,000 pounds of cargo only, depending on the aircraft.
So we've got 4 Dash 7s currently in our fleet. This one, FFL, it's the only one that hasn't got a cargo door, so it's strictly full passenger work. Our other 3, they're all for combis, so we offer anything from 2 seats through 10, 18, 26, 34, and then 46.
For Air Tindi, the STOL abilities of the Dash 7 are incredibly useful in the Canadian Arctic. The vast majority of northern settlements can only be accessed by air. Other aircraft like the 737-200 and ATR-42 can serve the larger airports. However, for communities with even smaller and shorter runways, the Dash 7 provides a vital service, connecting these Canadians to the outside world.
So it's mostly used in the Northwest Territories, in Nunavut quite a bit. It's going to mostly short abandoned strips, lots of places, gravel, land and sea ice fairly often. Places where people need to get a lot of freight into that not a lot of other aircraft can get into on a regular basis.
For the past 2 summers, Air Tindi has been operating fishing charter flights with the Dash 7. These fly from Vancouver International Airport to Bella Bella on Campbell Island in northwestern British Columbia, a 3,500-foot runway. However, that pales in comparison to some high Arctic destinations, including this 1,950-foot gravel strip at 76 degrees north in Grise Fjord, Nunavut. And the Dash 7's performance is no joke. Myself and 30 other aviation enthusiasts were treated to a short field takeoff in one of Air Tindi's aircraft earlier this year. Although we had more than enough runway to begin with a total takeoff weight of 42,000 pounds, we were airborne in roughly 1,200 feet. Experiencing that kind of performance on what is effectively a regional airliner shows you just how useful a Dash 7 can be. As always though, the question remains, how long will operators be able to keep the Dash 7 in the air?
So it kind of depends mostly on parts availability. So I guess we have an idea, but it all totally depends on what goes wrong with the airplane. So.
Another northern Canadian airline, Buffalo Airways, is able to keep their vintage Douglas DC-3s flying because of the sheer number that were produced. With quite literally thousands of DC-3s built, parts can still be found even 75 years later. So with just over 100 Dash 7s built, scattered all around the globe, you can see why operators like Air Tindi face an issue when it comes to parts. By limiting their fleet, Air Tindi believes they can keep the Dash 7 flying for another 10 years. Eventually though, the Dash 7 will have to be retired. But because it's such a versatile aircraft, there really is no better alternative without compromising on performance or payload.
You know, it's a thing that we toss around all the time, trying to think of a replacement, and there really isn't anything. And there's airplanes that have similar payloads, but nowhere near the same off-strip capabilities that the Dash 7 has, so we're still looking. If you can think of anything, let us know.
Viking Air of Victoria, British Columbia currently owns the type certificate for the Dash 7, along with that of every other de Havilland Canada aircraft. Essentially, this gives Viking the exclusive right to restart production for any of the 7 de Havilland Canada aircraft types. Now obviously, a newly built Dash 7 would be a dream for operators like Air Tindi. However, as Viking stated when they bought the type certificate back in 2006, they need to assess the market first. For an aircraft as niche as the Dash 7, the demand may not be enough to warrant completely restarting production, as Viking has done with the Twin Otter. Viking remains the only source of certified factory-new spare parts, and their spokesperson told Skies magazine earlier this year that Viking is committed to supporting our operators for the duration of their aircraft's operational use. In the meantime, though, this aircraft will continue to fly within Canada. From supplying and supporting the North to safeguarding the pristine waters of the Great Lakes, the Dash 7 is a truly Canadian aircraft and will remain that way for the foreseeable future. So, the next time a Dash 7 visits your local airport, you'd probably want to know, and that's why today's video is sponsored by JetTip. JetTip is an automatic flight alert service for aviation enthusiasts and plane spotters. It monitors and analyzes air traffic at different airports from multiple online sources. You'll receive alerts for notable aircraft, like special visitors or diversions. JetTip offers these smart alerts at most airports in the US and Canada, and airports can be added upon request. Improve your AvGeek experience and sign up at jettip.net for a 7-day free trial. A genuine thank you to those of you who have made it this far in the video. This has been a project I've been working on for well over a month now, and I'm very thankful to the wonderful people at Air Tindi for helping me out along the way. The in-flight footage you saw throughout was recorded on board a special aviation enthusiast charter flight in August. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. I also owe a huge thank you to my good friends Mark Braden and YQB Spotting. They were both kind enough to let me use their Dash 7 footage. This video wouldn't have been possible without their help, so please go check them out. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up. It would really help me out. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe if you'd like to see more like this. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.